Test. Yes. Master class, that's right. Okay, perfect. I'm in the right place. All right. I think I'm going to draw something. And oh, you can see what. Okay, great, fantastic. All right. How much time do we have? 1 hour? All day. All right, let me get the tools out. Does anyone know what's happening to the drawing at the end? Yeah, I think it's a raffle, isn't it? I don't know. Oh wait, I think it is a raffle, but I think they are doing it through the convention, right? Not at this panel, unfortunately. Maybe I can do it two quick ones. That'd be great. One second. I can try to talk and draw. One second. Okay. I'm gonna have paper. All right, great. Is anyone here an aspiring artist themselves? That want to be an artist? Just two? Maybe. Okay. And the rest of you guys? No. All right. Well, I'm gonna draw Batman, I guess. Yeah, let's do that. As a warm up, real quick, I have 2 pieces of paper. I've already decided I'm going Batman. This is a warm up. All right. Can you see that? Yeah. I just want to make sure. Okay, it's a first sketch of the day, so just keep it pretty simple. Does anyone have like a Kleenex by chance? Oh, great, thank you.
Parte del proceso.
Oh, okay.
That's the secret.
I do. I'll do that later, but hopefully not the same piece. Surprise bit of DNA into the art. So, does anyone have any questions about art, breaking into comics, any of that? Yes. Go ahead.
So I think every day is becoming harder to break into comics, or maybe not to break into comics, but breaking into the top companies like Marvel or DC. I've actually talked to people in both companies and they tell me that it's tighter and tighter, you know. What would you recommend for someone who is aspiring to get into those companies?
I think persistence is important. I don't know what, I disagree though. I think it's actually easier. You want to hold that? You did not see that. Hello? It's not even on, John. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I, from my point of view, I feel like it's easier to break in now. But But I feel that way because, you know, with the power of the internet, I think it's just a lot easier for people to get their work seen by other people. And at the end, you can publish your own work, you just publish it online, rather than have, so getting into Marvel and DC, I think there are more jobs now than ever too. When I broke into comics, I don't think there was 48 DC titles and 70, I mean, Marvel has like 70 books, I think, a month or something like that. So there's a lot of stuff being published right now. And then we're doing the Young Reader line, and that uses a whole different kind of look as well. So I think there's more opportunities than ever. So I don't know if I agree with that assessment. But I will say that it is just, I think it's difficult to do anything in the creative world just because it's competitive and a lot of people want to do it in general, right? So whether it's art, music, directing movies, TV shows, all that kind of stuff. But I would say that you don't need permission from Marvel or DC to be a working artist. You can find other creators online to work with, right? And you can self-publish and get your work out there. And that's really, I think that's, if I were trying to break into comics today, you know, I mailed my artwork into editors. I would be drawing stories and putting them online, finding other creators to collaborate with, and promoting it through social media. And I think that's the way to get in. Okay. Does anyone know how to use a brush here? To fill in some black areas here, very quickly. Okay, why don't you come on up? All right. So, no. Sit down here.
Yeah, Salvador.
Yeah, vamos, Salvador. Okay. I'm gonna have you. So I'm gonna try to do two. One goes to the organizer. They're gonna raffle it off. I think they're tickets or something. I don't know. Another one we'll just give away here secretly. So turn off all your phones. We'll have it secretly given away here for the people in the audience. Okay. So I'm gonna try to do two in an hour. But I need some help. And so, see where I put the dots? I want you to fill those areas in with ink. Okay?
Don't screw it.
All right, don't screw it up. What's your name? So if you screw it up, we'll know who to blame. What's your name? Salvador? Don't screw it up. Don't make a mistake.
We want your pressure.
Right.
Don't be nervous. Sin presión.
So, just, I'm going to have you start with these simple areas here. We'll see how you go. Yeah, hold on. What is this? Oh, no, yeah, here. Okay.
Estoy bien, ¿viste? Te quieres y ves. Respira. Respira. Calm down. Dime,
No me mess with my name. Okay, all right. Okay. You're doing great. You're doing fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mexican power.
This is for you guys. This is for you.
That one's for you.
He's doing good. Yeah, fantastic. Great. Does anyone have a water bottle by chance? Anyone have $1,000? Oh, thank you. All right. All right.
wise, what has been your greatest challenge? Maybe was a cover a double page spread, or I love those big spreads that you did on Wildcats. So personally, what has been your greatest challenge in the page or the cover that you have been most comfortable with the result?
The hardest things to draw are not the most complicated in terms of elements. So usually covers with lots of characters and stuff, that's actually easier because it's just it's a lot of work. It's just a lot of elements that you have to draw. The hardest parts are the more subtle relationship between objects. So like people holding hands, you know, one character sitting on top of another, people looking very relaxed, right? So it's actually easy to draw a character standing like a superhero, but when they're relaxed, you know, try to watch TV on their couch and getting that kind of very natural feeling to their gesture is harder because you have to look at life, you know. So the solution to that usually is to take photographs of real people. So in Batman Hush, there was a couple scenes where little kids were shaking hands and like a secret handshake and stuff like that. And so I had my kids pose. I had them put on a blazer. I took the photographs. There's another one where Batman is hunched over the Joker and Commissioner Gordon is pointing a gun at his back. And I wanted to capture the drapes of the cloth of the cape along the back and capture the arc of the back. And that's it's a relaxed pose, right? The character's bent over and the body's gonna have a very different kind of silhouette. So for those, I usually take photographs so I can make sure that it looks true to life. Characters flying up and flying at you with their fists, that you can just draw from imagination. So
Can I ask another question?
yes.
Well, regarding style, it has happened to me that once a talent manager told me your style is okay. Then several months later, he told me, you know what, this kind of style we're not using anymore. So how do you see that? Or because it seems to me, and I may be wrong, that's why I'm asking. The styles that are being used in some comics are shifting. And what would you recommend regarding style? Because there's like new waves of styles coming in,
Right.
and they're being used. So, do you think we should go with that, or do something else, or what did you say about that constant shiftings of styles?
I would just draw how you like to draw. I don't even know how I would create a style that I didn't like because I thought I could get work using that style. So my style is a combination of all the artists I really loved growing up as a kid. So I don't know, I wouldn't have that conversation with an agent. I would say, hey, if you're an agent, go get me work. If you can't get me work, I'll find another agent that can do it. I think you should draw what you really want to draw and the way you want to draw it, because that's the way to get the best work. I think if you're trying to chase a commercial style or quote unquote perceived commercial style, it's just dangerous. You can get in a situation where you're drawing in a way that you don't really enjoy.
So you say we should stick to our fans.
Find a new agent, that's what I would say. I'm feeling feisty this morning. Yes? Does anyone know about the raffle that's happening? Do you guys know any details? Okay.
Mr. Yuli,
Yes.
what inspired you to draw comics?
What inspired me to draw comics? You mean like every day or just at the beginning? Like both? So when I started out, I think it was just something I had to do. It was the thing I was most passionate about, right? So I went to college. I have a degree in psychology. I was thinking about to applying to medical school. Oh, great, thank you. Would you like one?
Thank you.
And so to me, that was really, it was a burning passion that I would have done even if they weren't paying me. So it was something I really, really wanted to accomplish. Then after you get in the business for a while, and you've been doing it for a while, I think you have different things that motivate you. And so the way I draw, what inspires me now is I have a deadline and I have to get the deadline. Oh, you're done already? Fantastic. All right. Cool. Great job. All right.
Well,
Oh,
I think we went here for the comics, and what I see you as more as a comic artist. You were working for Marvel, we're not that, but then you find a way to build your own publishing company and grow it enough to sell it to another big company. So I see you as a comic artist, but as a businessman too.
yeah.
And today, I think in a world with a lot of entrepreneurship and startups, we are trying to do something like that. We're not always skillful enough to draw, and as in my case, I love your drawings, and I love to draw, and I love to see art, but not good enough to make my own. But what would be your advice for any kind of business or startup? Maybe for a lawyer, maybe for a designer, maybe for any kind of business that you're trying to build enough to make a living of it and still love your work but make a living of it.
Right. So a couple thoughts about that. First, I don't know, these are like truisms or these are sayings that I've heard. They often say, or one school of thought is that you should find a business that you, find something that you think is broken, something that's not working very well, and get in that business because you'll be motivated to try to fix that business, right? The other is that,
When you found Image, you see there was a broken spot in comics?
yeah, I think so. The way the talent, the freelance, the artists were treated, the rights that they had, the way they were being compensated, yeah. So we reinvented all that, not just for ourselves, but the people that work for us. So in terms
That
of,
you're trying to make your own place for the things you like to do but are not in
well, we changed the way they got paid. We changed the paper quality. We changed the coloring. We gave royalties to colorists. I did at least. Bonuses to letters. So there was things that we weren't happy with because we were doing those jobs. We saw that the system could be improved upon. And so one of the reasons we left was to improve upon that system, and that's a motivational thing. So entering a business where you feel like, oh, I could do this better is something that is important and will help kind of motivate you to that, to success, I think. The other thing I think of is, and this is something that, I do a lot of different kinds of things now. I work on marketing plans and P&Ls and budgets, but I always try to take it with, for me, what has interested me throughout my entire career is the creative aspect of what I do. So if there's a creative way to look at a budget or a marketing plan, that's the approach I usually take. And that's,
maybe not really try to make a budget like creative with some creative design, but maybe for a business perspective, I mean, how can you improve your budget, I guess?
that's the trick, right? If you can take a creative approach to anything, a relationship with a significant other, your daily life, the way you approach your work, the way you dress, the way everything in life you can approach from a number of different perspectives. And the first one I usually try to take is from the creative point of view. What kind of massages that part of my brain, right? Even if I go to another country or different city, what interests me here? What do I look at, take in that I can take with me home that will have some impact on the work I do and kind of improve the way I approach my work, right? So I think there's ways to learn, and that's part of being a creative person, is being open to those kinds of inputs and stimuli and learning experiences. So I think if for 100% you can be creative towards putting a budget together. The people that you work with, trying to get people to perform better at their respective jobs you can yell at them and tell them what to do, or you can be creative and think about how they look at their job and figure out a unique way to inspire and motivate them to do the best they can and have different plans for each employee you work with, right? Thank you.
Mr. Gimli,
Yes?
this is a small but maybe a hard question. What will be your top comic book stories of all time, even if you participate in them or not, for how you love the story and the impact of the fans?
Could you repeat that one more time? Sorry.
What will be your top comic book stories? Maybe top 5, top 10, I don't know. Even if you participate in them or not.
Who asked that question? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say most of the stories were by Frank Miller. He was probably the one guy that just created work that really, really inspired me. When I was much younger, when I was like 13, maybe, I was reading his Daredevil run. Then when I got to about 21, that's when The Dark Knight Returns came out. And so all that stuff, his journey really as a storyteller is something that really inspired me. Because those stories were ostensibly, or on a superficial level, about superheroes, but they were much deeper, and they explored areas of these characters I never really thought about before. And, especially The Dark Knight Returns, it's about a hero that's at the end of his life. He's retired, he's given up, and he sort of is like a phoenix. He rises from the ashes and decides to become Batman again. And the relationships he's had with all his former friends and partners in the Justice League. It's a story about a superhero, but it's also a story about a man, and that was very interesting to me. So I would say Frank Miller was the key person, and Born Again, the Daredevil storyline, Dark Knight Returns, of course, and then I would say just in pure superhero mechanics, telling a story, it would probably be Chris Claremont and John Byrne on their run of the X-Men. I just thought their run was just an incredible collaboration of two minds, and the way they each kind of contributed to the mythology and crafted a story where you knew all the different characters and their points of view. They did the quintessential team superhero book to me. So.
Thank you so much.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Gimli. I'm here.
Okay, sure.
I have this question usually related more with your executive position right now. What's coming next for DC Comics? Related with the Dark Multiverse, just getting free in all the DC comic books. So what's coming next for DC Comics on 2019?
There's a lot of stuff. I'm not really I don't really have the freedom to talk about it at this moment. I'll say for both the work I do on the media side and the comic book side, there's a lot of super talented people that put a lot of time and effort into their projects, and I don't really feel it's my place to kind of spill the beans on their projects ahead of the time that they're ready to talk about those projects. That said, we do work about 6 months to a year and a half out. So, there's things we're planning for 2020, but a lot of stuff that we're doing for next year already. Some really exciting stuff. That's really all I can say. But that said, we have some amazing creators. We have an amazing lineup of writers and artists, from Brian Bendis to Jeff Johns to Scott Snyder to Tom King to Grant Morrison. super, super strong bench.
That's a good one, Grant Morrison coming back to DC. So he's gonna work on Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So he has a free path to work on Green Lantern, or he has some limitations about the Dark Multiverse.
We all have limitations. But we try to give all our creators the most creative freedom possible to tell the best stories. But you know, it's a shared universe, you know, so there are lots of different pieces that are constantly moving and evolving, and you want to make sure that the universe feels consistent, and that's not always achieved, but that's something we always strive for. So I think that's one of the limiters. Like, go ahead and do anything. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna kill everyone. Well, you can't kill everyone because we have to publish all these other books, right? But now, is there a creative way for you to do that storyline and have it still exist? Well, maybe they go into a pocket dimension. That's a bad example, but that's how we kind of approach it, right? Like, how do we give them the freedom to tell their stories, but at the same time be able to exist within the shared universe? It's a very unique kind of skill to be able to tell stories and collaborate constantly, really, with all the other moving pieces within the universe. Right? But we have some really interesting stuff lined up. Right? That's all I can say.
Hi, Jim.
Yes.
In retrospective, what has been for you more fulfilling? To work with Marvel and DC Comics, or create your own company with your friends and have all the freedom to create a new universe and new characters?
That's the question. Yeah. So no, sorry.
What has been more fulfilling for you personally? I mean, like an artist and
I love them all. Like I think that. I don't know if I rank things like that. Like, I don't eat a meal and go, wow, this lunch is better than yesterday's lunch, or better than lunch I had 1 year ago today, or the lunch I had 10 years ago. I want to have the best lunch now. It's a horrible analogy, so let me think of something better. All the things I did when I worked at Marvel, that was really a culmination of a dream I had as a kid, as a fan growing up. X-Men were my favorite characters. I really wanted to work on the X-Men. So I transitioned from being a fan to a professional when I was like 21 to 22, and I got to the X-Men when I was maybe 24, 25, I think, 25. So that was something I wanted to achieve, and so it was an amazing experience. Leaving Marvel was tough, but I did it with 5, 6 other of my best friends that worked there, creating something new from nothing and kind of changing the situation of other artists and creating characters that never existed before and finding great success with that. That was an amazing experience, right, for me. And so I will always cherish that, but I don't know if that's better. They're different experiences, right? Apples and oranges, right? So, and then working at DC was really taking all those experiences and knowledge that I had before and applying them so that I could be the best leader within the company, so that I understood how the freelancers looked at their jobs and how we can treat them the best to get the best work out of them. So there's a lot of stuff that were challenges throughout my life, but they were all different challenges. And so being able to take on those challenges and find some success that's what makes me happy. And it's like when you're super happy, I don't know if there's levels, really, you know? So there were all really awesome moments within my career, but I don't know if I would rank them, you know? But I'm very happy with doing what I'm doing, and getting the Chief Creative Officer job in June is just another challenge. And it's been really interesting seeing how other parts of Warner Brothers looks at the characters that we have and how they want to adapt them and bring these stories to life. Okay. I'm gonna give you one more.
Hello. Well, if you can pick a side between superheroes or villains as a Jim Lee, what is your favorite character you want to draw?
Who's your favorite character?
The Joker.
The Joker? I like the Joker too. I want to make you happy. I get that question a lot. I should probably change my answer. I should just say it's Batman, and then everyone will be happy. I'm done. But I have a longer answer, and it's like they're all like your children, right? Or to me, it's when I sit down to draw something, I want to make sure I do the best version of that character possible, whether it's a Joker or a new character or a character that Spawn, right, or the X-Men, whatever. And I want to impress you guys as the readers that I'm doing the best version of this character ever, right? I don't always achieve it. It's super hard to do that because you're competing with not only all the other people that are out there, but all the people that came before you, right? But that's my goal, one of my goals. And so, so the only way I can accomplish that is to say this is the greatest character ever, and I'm going to make it the greatest character ever, whether it's a lame character or a great character. So I think that's the challenge. And so whatever I've got on my desk that I'm working on, that's the project I am most in love with. Right? So,
Okay, thank you very much.
any other questions?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah. Go all the way, yeah.
I have a question here.
Yes.
Here, at the beginning of the 90s, you left Marvel.
Did I what?
At the beginning of the 90s, you left Marvel, maybe because you were inspired or supported by Jack Kirby. And then, in 96 or 95, you returned to Marvel,
Yes.
and you were welcomed by Stanley. Could you share some thoughts and memories about these 2 layers?
Yeah, I don't know if we were, Jack Kirby was the inspiration to leave, right? I think Jack, the truth is I was never, I didn't really like Jack's work when I was a kid. Like I didn't understand it, I was more of a Neil Adams fan. He was like, oh my God, these characters look like they're alive, the way they kind of point at you. I was like, oh my God, that hand feels 3D, right? Jack Kirby was like very blocky and it looked very distorted to me compared to Neil Adams' sort of, Michelangelo-esque kind of figures. So I was definitely a Neil Adams fan, and I didn't really, but I tried to understand Kirby because he was so beloved, and I remember trying to draw like him, when I was like 12 or 13. I have got a couple sketches where I tried to do stuff in his style, and I still didn't understand it. And I think really it wasn't until I became a professional that I understood what was so impressive about Jack Kirby, and that's the power and the way he stylized the anatomy. So I don't think I was capable of understanding. This is a side digression. But anyway, so Jack is a tremendous influence in terms of my art and the power I want to convey. But I think leaving, Marvel was, the friendship I had with the other creators and the desire to do something different and fix something that we thought was kind of broken. When I went back to Marvel to do Heroes Reborn, Stan welcomed us back. It was really cool seeing him. We did a press conference together. But I don't know if that's the defining moment, my defining memory of Stan. I just know he flew in for the press conference. It was great to have him, and it was great seeing him work the crowd and interact with the press because he was so masterful in it. To me, Stan goes back earlier, right around 91, I think, when we left it for Image. We did these Staber how to draw videos. They're on YouTube now, and it was Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, myself, and we went to a recording facility up in LA, and we recorded these videos, and Stan basically asked us how we drew, and it was just a really amazing time. This is the guy you idolized as a kid, right? He created all your favorite characters, so many of them, and here you are listening to him, interacting with him. It's not something I ever imagined I would ever be in a position to experience when I was starting to draw comics, right? When I started drawing comics, I thought I was gonna really, and this appealed to me, I thought I was just gonna draw in my room, in very comfortable clothing. Essentially what I wore into bed, and I would be able to really just do my work, and it wouldn't matter if people knew who I was. They didn't know if I had a degree in anything. They wouldn't have to know my experience. they would just look at the work and appreciate the work, or not like or not like the work based on the work, and that really appealed to me, right? And I thought that work would go out to other people like myself that loved comics. And I never imagined a time where the comics would change my life to the point where I'm in Mexico City talking to a bunch of people I don't know, drawing pictures, hanging out with Salvador. Right? You know? So there are a lot of like interesting things that have happened. And getting to meet Stan Lee and Jack Kirby was definitely one of those crazy things. It just, you don't see that ahead of you. You just see like, I'm going to do this. This is the job I want to do. I have to draw comic books. And that passion translated to all these other great experiences and events. So it's been very profound and something I'm eternally thankful for, because my passions have led to all these other things. So it's been amazing working in comics and being able to meet the people that created the foundation of it all. I think I met almost all the, I met Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, of course, John Buscema.
And what about Steranko?
Steranko, he's still alive. So I've met him several times. Yeah, very nice gentleman.
Romita, John Romita.
John Romita, of course. He gave me my first art critique when I started at Marvel. He tore apart my art. It was very difficult. But he was right. He was 100% right with every comment he gave me. I just could not see it. And I know that's the truth. I mean, so if I see anyone's work and I give them a critique, I know that in their head they're like, you know what, maybe you're not so good after all, because you obviously can't see the brilliance of my work, you know. And that's kind of, I'm sure I had a little bit of that. So I heard what he said, but I don't think I embraced it all. Because again, to the question about style, I had in my mind that I'm going to do a very detailed style that's going to have lots of elements, and he was like, no, you got to simplify to make it more clear and understandable. But looking back on it, he was 100% right with all his comments, you know. So, but it was, I think every artist has to figure out how to take in criticism and apply it to their work. You can't be a slave to the criticism and say, okay, this is horrible, I have to change everything, right? But you don't want to be stubborn and not open to any criticism, saying I'm not changing anything, because then you're not going to get any better. So finding that balance of taking in criticism and applying some of it to your work is a very hard thing to do, but if you can master that, that's a really great way of taking your work to the next level.
Good morning, Mr. Lee. I have a question for you. This is kind of a broad question, but I'll try to make it as short as possible.
A bro question?
Yeah, but I'll try to make it as short as possible.
Okay, all right.
So, in every kind of medium, entertainment-wise, there are always several parties interested. I mean, the artist who wants to tell a story, the fans who sometimes ask for the artist to cater to their wishes, and it's called also the political correct people who want like diversity and stuff. And for example, in a medium like Star Wars is very criticized right now for catering to certain interests and stuff. So the question is, how do you guys at DC find the balance to get the stories you want out there, as well as keeping the fans happy and not coming under like a lot of scrutiny from these politically correct people?
It's a very complicated question for me to answer. I could talk about that for hours. I don't know if there's a policy that we instituted. You know, I think our approach is to work with the best creators and give them, you know, again, the creative freedom within certain limits to tell the best stories possible. I think the dangers that you're talking about, and this criticism, I don't know how, I know it's a big topic online, but not everyone's online all the time, and not everyone's involved in that conversation. So some people just go see movies and like them or don't like them, and that's it. That's the, you know, that's the end of the discussion. They don't go out there and engage online with other fans, argue with them. I mean, there's some that do, but a lot of people don't. So I think at the end of the day, you want to be careful about letting the creative direction of what you do be dictated by online discussions, right? And so I think we always encourage our talent to tell the stories that they find in their hearts and things that inspire them. and because I think it gets really, you head in weird directions if you're very super responsive to what you're talking about online, because I don't think it necessarily leads you in the right direction. That said, I like the Star Wars movies, so I like having diversity in comics. I like having, you know, as one of the people kind of pushed the New 52, I like taking chances with the characters. I mean, I feel like that's one of our responsibilities as creators is to look at these characters that have been around for 60, 70, 80 years. How do we keep them fresh? How do we keep them interesting? And you don't do that by just telling the same stories that existed 10, 15, 20 years ago. You move them forward. And sometimes it's painful for fans to see those changes. I know I was, as a fan, I remember when Wolverine went from a yellow and blue costume to the orange and brown costume. I hated it. I'm like, this is horrible. They're ruining my character, you know? And then like 4 issues later, I loved that costume. I loved it. And I was like, oh, this is the best version of the costume. That other blue and yellow, that was so garish and so bright. Why would he ever wear that? This orange and brown one, that's the cool one, right? So I think you have to, you know, and like when the Beast went from a human to like a blue furry creature, I'm still not that crazy about that one, actually, honestly. I still like the human version, but you see how fans get really attached to a version of the characters. But I think as creators, it's one of our responsibilities is to keep pushing the mythology forward and looking at fresh ways to tell interesting stories with these characters. Otherwise, I think at the end of the day, people won't care. And so it's finding that right balance. Right. Good. What? Oh, I thought I had an hour. Okay, all right. Well, I should finish these. Yeah, let me get in. Let's do this, all right? We have 20 minutes? Okay, all right, 20 minutes. All right, we got 20 minutes here. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to just tackle this myself. Thank you so much for your help. Appreciate it. All right. Here's what I'm gonna do. This one is, I guess, for a raffle. I don't know any more details other than I will finish this. Okay, got it. All right, so this will be done for the raffle and that'll be done later today. This one I'm gonna finish right now, and then we're gonna figure out a way to give it out to someone here that's in the audience, right? Okay. Sure, okay, great. So I'm just going to draw right now. If anyone has a question, I'm not going to look at you, I'm just going to talk. It'll look like I'm being very rude, but I'm not. I'm going to just... Anyway.
For example, we were talking about characters that you can't choose as your favorite because they're like your children, but what about other people's children? Are there any characters that you like to draw, like just for fun, or maybe you're doing in your house a little sketch? I don't know, something like Adventure Time or something like that.
Yeah, Adventure Time would be a lot of fun to do. I haven't drawn those characters. I did a SpongeBob SquarePants Patrick sketch. I have a Twitch stream. Any of you guys know what Twitch is? Okay, so it's like an online platform like YouTube. You can just access it through your browser. And I stream like once a month or so, twice a month. It's a live stream, and the fans sometimes will vote on characters that they want me to draw. And so I've drawn a lot of anime and manga characters that I never would have drawn ever, and that's been really kind of interesting to me. I don't have an emotional attachment to those characters. They're not characters that I grew up with necessarily, but they have huge fan bases, and it was a lot of fun. Drawing a lot of these characters for the first time and seeing the reaction of fans that didn't even know who I was, or didn't follow Western or comics at all, and so that was a lot of fun. And so, but again, when I do those, I want to do the best version possible and do them right. But then it's always interesting to see the reaction of the fans because they're so used to an interpretation of the characters, and I'm not going to. My goal is not to draw the characters so they look exactly like the characters that they know, but my intent is to kind of do my interpretation of those characters, and sometimes that's very different.
And also, you were talking about this, taking something from the country you visit, taking something to apply in the work and your life.
Yeah.
What would you take about Mexico? This is your first time here, your first visit.
Right.
What would you take from Mexico to apply to your work?
So it's not my first time to Mexico. It's
Well,
the-
as a convention.
yes, my first Comic-Con. I would say really sort of the diversity of, what I've noticed is that in Mexico City, there is a great disparity between the areas that are very well off and the areas that are not so well off, you know? And that's something that is interesting, especially in a city that's super large, having that kind of dichotomy and that imbalance, and how do you reflect that from an artistic point of view, right? So some areas you see, it's represented by the architecture, it's represented by, you know, the width of the streets, and then you go into other sections of the city and maybe they're not as many lights, so it's dimmer, darker, but the streets are more narrow, the architecture is different, you know, the way people dress. So these are the kinds of things I think about. And so if I'm drawing a scene like that, whether it's Mexico City or another large, big city, those are the kinds of things I can kind of pull from my memory and go, what was the feeling I had? Why did it feel different in one neighborhood versus another? And how do I can I pull visual elements that I remember and put them on paper? So, yeah, that's just one thing. The other one is just that the food is very different than, you know, Mexican food in the U.S. You know? So, yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, have you ever tried to draw with this tequila? Like, I mean, maybe some coffee.
No, I had some tequila last night. It's very small and very dangerous. Yeah, it was, but it was a good time. Good time. Yes.
Nada más yo no preguntas para que pueda terminar el dibujo. Nada más yo no preguntas para que termine el dibujo.
Para que termine, es que si no.
Opinion,
Huh?
the Mexican fans.
Yes.
Your opinion,
Oh, the Mexican fans?
yes.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been really great. They're very passionate about it, and you know, it's always a challenge because I'm gonna look down. So excuse me. So I'm gonna try to finish this. It's always a challenge when you know, you go to a country where not everyone speaks or can understand English, because that's such an important part of communicating. And but it's been really great seeing how passionate people are. And a lot of times they're collecting comics that they don't necessarily have the ability to read, but they love the art. And I was thinking about that this morning of, you know, I think writers in our business are very fortunate because they're able to, you know, have their ideas and they can go and work in other mediums. They can write, you know, movies and TV shows. And that's sometimes limited for us as artists. But what we have as an advantage as artists is that our work travels internationally without the words. And so you can go to a country and maybe they can't even read the comic books, but they can look at the pictures and understand a little bit of the story and be impressed or, you know, become a fan of the work. And so it's really nice to be able to go to other countries and see the level of passion, sometimes even more than what you see in America for the work itself. And so it's been really great.
Thank you.
I have 14 minutes, right? Yeah. Anyone have another question?
Yes, I'm good. No, permítame.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
And regarding the placement of characters in the panel, there's two forms of doing it. One that says that in the next panel you have to place the characters in the same order. However, some writers give you instructions to change the placement from panel to panel. And some people say it's okay, other people say it's not okay. So what's your take on that? What would you recommend for the artist? To always keep the characters in the same order in each panel, or just to go with the script and change the placement of characters?
I think if the way you look at it, I think it was Todd McFarlane said, you know, if a writer put all this time in to write a script and come up with all the specifics, I want to respect the work they've done and not just change it, you know, not change it without any thought. My answer to that is, if you're going to change anything that's in the script, make sure it's a lot better. You know, if it's a lot better, no one's going to fault you. But if you change it and you make it worse, then it might be difficult getting the next job working with that same writer. So I don't change a lot when I work, but I think even within the context of a full script, there's a lot of room to improvise and make it your own. And if you ever there's not many examples of this, but if you look, sometimes you give the same script to different artists, and you'll get something very, very different, even if they follow the script exactly perfectly. It's amazing how much leeway there is in even working off a full script. Okay.
Thank you.
What would be your next creative challenge?
What is my next creative challenge?
Yeah, are you looking forward to?
Right now, it's finishing this in 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes. I want you guys to be happy with what I do here. You know, so that's what's on my mind right now. But there's. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm also trying to think of how I'm gonna give this away.
What's his birthday today?
I thought about it. Excuse me?
Whoever has the closest birthday to today.
Yeah, I've done that, but I'm gonna do something a little different, I think. Okay, any other questions?
Is there any chance you're going back to a project in Wildstorm?
There's always a chance, but nothing planned right now.
Sure. Mr.
Yes?
Well, what's very difficult beginning the case that you are?
Excuse me?
He asked you if it's difficult to be in this place you are right now, all your career.
Is it difficult?
Yes.
It would be difficult if I went from where I was when I first started comics and jumped to this, but it's not difficult if you take the whole journey and build upon the experiences, right, that came before you, right? So it may seem difficult from a person that hasn't worked in comics before, but you know, when you've been in the business for a while, you learn a lot of things, and all those experiences and lessons basically prepare you for the next step, you know, in your career.
You create a lot and create and co-create a lot of characters and things. Which one is your favorite and why?
I was talking about that before. I don't really have a favorite per se. I had a lot of fun times like working on Gen 13. That was kind of fun working on with Jeff Scott Campbell and Brandon Choi. So there was a lot of cool. It's not the characters per se, but the actual collaborating and the creating that I remember and have fond memories of. Right.
Eventually, you have become a legend in the comics world. How do you feel about that?
Can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Eventually, you become a legend in the comics.
I think they just call you a legend when you get old. There's a time when people call me Mr. Lee, and I felt like, who's Mr. Lee, right? But now it's like, you better call me Mr. Lee, you young punk. No, so I think it's just it's a word that's casually used. I don't really think about it that way. It's I think I've had a lot of cool experiences, and I think. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
If you supported talent like Raven Charles, Scott Campbell,
yeah,
and in Homage Studio, what features or skills you wanted in new talents?
Well, first and foremost, it's talent, right? The ability to draw. Ability to draw in a style that's kind of fresh and different is exciting to see. But a big part of that is, the drive of that artist to want to do the work and meet the deadlines. I've seen a lot of people start out with not a lot of one or two, but a lot of passion and drive, and they're able to find the talent and the capability, and also find a voice and do something that hasn't been done before. And,
what's the best way for like aspiring artists to submit their work, especially if they're from a different country to DC?
I will put stuff online and then send people links. That's what I would do.
Will there be any chance to maybe show you our work to you at the convention?
If there's time, and that's the trickiest part. I think that's why I think it's easiest to basically give a person like maybe photocopies of the work with a link to more. Yeah.
Can we give you
You can give me a photocopy, yeah.
You recently published on Facebook letters who chase you, your work, suggest you learn to draw hands. What is your opinion now from those letters?
Well, I put those letters up because they're right. It was interesting seeing the mixed reactions. Some people thought they were too harsh, but I think if you're trying to break into a business, you want people to be honest with you and give you things you can actually work on. I think if they just say, well, looks great, keep up, keep at it, it's not as helpful, So I think all the criticisms were spot on and very helpful.
Thank you.
Has there been
4 minutes.
Has there been any time where the contrary to that letter's success, an artist will review and there's not much to improve, that you take the surprise that it's very good and you don't need to work with him? Has there been any situations like that?
Where I find people and go like, this is great, I want to work with you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which would be the case? What artist was that?
Well, we did a talent search when we started Wildstorm, and people mailed in their submission, their work, and like Jeff Campbell was the guy that mailed in his work, Rhett Booth, Alex Garner, Lee Bermejo, Carlos Hand, lots, Ryan Benjamin, I found them all through the mail.
Did you like Batman 50 of Tom King?
Excuse me?
Did you like Batman 50 of Tom King?
Yes. I did. See? Should have said that.
Did you learn more Spanish words here?
After tequila.
Una más? Una más? Two minutes. Yes.
Would you recommend it to someone who wants to live for the comic in the rest of your life? Or life?
What?
Someone to enter to the comic book world?
Yes.
But what do you recommend it to this person?
To draw all the time.
But not only on the drawing, on everything. He wants to write and drawing and make everything, and you have a lot of experience. What do you recommend it to this person?
Aside from drawing?
Huh?
In addition to just drawing? The drawing is the most important part if you want to be an artist. But if you want to be a writer or an artist, I think life experiences is good. Getting out, traveling. I had this approach of, well, I just want to draw in my room and not have to deal with other people, but I actually think that's the wrong approach. There's great value in getting outside of your comfort zone and traveling and seeing how other people live and approach life, because I think it opens up your mind to different ways to improve your own work and your own approaches to work and life. And your life is like your artwork. There's ways to improve it. There's ways to get better at it. And you learn best from personal and direct experience. So, you're welcome.
Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Actually, when you draw, did you have mistakes?
The what?
Did you have mistakes when you draw?
The new happy states.
Mistakes.
Mistakes. Yeah, mistakes?
Yes.
I never make mistakes. All the mistakes are true. There's a lot. I just hope you don't see the mistakes. Yes, but what about the mistakes? What about them?
Did you have
mistakes when you draw?
mistakes right now?
Did I make mistakes? Yes, there are mistakes on everything. But, one can argue that the mistakes are part of your style, right? If you think about what style is, it's the way you look at reality and change it so that, very quickly, like a hand may look like this. But if I'm going to stylize this, and I'm going to make it right? This is a more realistic hand, this is a more stylistic hand. But this doesn't look like real life. I've broken things, I've changed things, and so their style is intentional mistakes, that I've changed reality. And so I think it's important to recognize that we're not trying to draw something as realistic as possible unless that's your style. So you can embrace your mistakes. All right, this is all I got. I think we're done, right? Yes. So this is your pen. Yeah, thank you. Take that back. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ask if people have certain objects. Okay, if you have it, then you win. So the first person that raises your hand, right? So the first one will be, does anyone have a nail clipper? Nail clipper?
Oh my
What's it hissing for? What's it hissing for?
It's hard.
Nail clipper? You know, you clip your nails? No?
I got nails.
Do you think you have one? All right, hold on. Let me inspect this, make sure it's a fully functional. This one. Okay, very good. Hold on, little stars on this. Wow. Okay. It's still wet, but here you go. There you go.